Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelsey Nager, and I am the Employer Experience Coordinator at USD's Career Development Center. So I work with employers to get them doing career fairs, info sessions like these, and on-campus interviews. So thank you all for being here today during your summer break. We're excited to have you and have you learn more about careers in the financial world. Today we have Madrika from Axos Bank, and she is here to tell you about Axos Bank as well as some job opportunities they have open and how to look for job opportunities in the future with them, as well as internships. So I'm going to pass it off to her. And then if you have questions during the presentation, please chat them, and then we'll look at them at the end. Also at the end, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions as well. So either way is fine, whatever you're most comfortable with. And I'll kick it off. So thank you, Madrika, for coming, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Madrika, and I am the Campus Recruiting and Analyst Program Manager here at Axos Bank. So my role is essentially connect for our entry-level positions. And then also, I'm going to speak a little bit more about the particular position, but I also oversee one of our analyst training programs here, which is a part of it also. Essentially what I'll be doing is going through and giving more information about the organization, the culture and fit of Axos. So depending on how much you know about us already, we're definitely kind of a unique organization, and we look for unique candidates as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well as in general, but then I'll also kind of highlight some that we have currently open, and also the recruiting process that we have here at this organization. So as Kelsey said, feel free to post questions as I'm presenting, and then at the end I'll go through those, as well as feel free to unmute yourself during the Q&A, and you can ask your question then as well. So for the presentation, whoops, let me go back. Let me go ahead and I'm going to turn my video off for this portion. Awesome. So a little bit about Axos Bank in general. So we are an organization where we are constantly modernizing the banking industry with human insight and digital expertise. So we are a digital bank, actually. We are a company that was founded in 2000 as one of the first digital banks. And since then, we've grown to be an experienced technology-based financial services company. And we serve consumers, businesses, and institutions. And we offer a cutting-edge banking experience that is constantly being refined and improved upon every day, essentially. So that's really tied into our model and who we are as an organization. So we view ourselves as kind of constantly striving to be a better kind of bank. So what that means is we're constantly innovating. We are a lean and agile organization, which means that we run very efficiently. And so essentially what that provides is better, often less costly products and services that we're able to provide because of that. So the cool thing, so we're headquartered here in San Diego. So the new trolley line that's being built, we're right off the trolley line. Essentially, we're right across the street from the UTC Mall. So if any of you are familiar with that mall, there's actually a bridge that links our building to the mall. So that's where we're located, and that's essentially where this position, like for the most part, the positions would be located. But we do actually have other locations as well. So we are a growing and thriving organization. So we started out in San Diego, but since then we have expanded to Los Angeles. We have operations in Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, and New York. So even in the short amount of time that we've been here, which is 20 years, which again isn't like that long when you think about it kind of comparatively, we've had some extensive growth over that time. So we've expanded really significantly, I would say. The great thing too is, since we are headquartered here in San Diego, Axos Bank is a really great company to consider for anyone who wants to stay local in San Diego. Depending on the industry that you're interested in and the types of roles that you would be applying for. You know, other cities, kind of bigger cities, have like different industries and maybe more opportunities. San Diego in general, kind of, if you're looking at the job market, is a bit limited. So Axos Bank in particular is a great place to be if you do have a desire to actually try to stay in San Diego and have an interest in banking, finance, in general. So it's definitely an awesome opportunity for that as well. And like I said, we really are more than just a bank. So essentially, we've expanded in terms of that growth that I mentioned. We've exceeded over $12 billion in assets over the 20 years that we've been here. So I think that's a great testament to our success as an organization, and it's really tied into kind of our model and the different things that we're constantly doing to really be able to stay competitive in the job market. So with that, we have what's called the Universal Digital Bank, which essentially is a consumer platform with enhanced customer experience. So it's meant to provide kind of a more in-depth engagement between our customers, and we're implementing into that like online trading, digital advising will be added. And so it gives us more control over the user experience. So this universal digital bank is a really like unique thing. So there are other banks out there that have kind of online features, but they still have that brick and mortar. And there's other kind of full online banks as well. But with our internal system, with this new universal digital bank, we're really trying to expand how we're able to engage with our consumers and providing enhanced customer experience because of that. So that's kind of a really cool and unique feature to Axos. Throughout the years, we've definitely embarked on some really profitable acquisitions over the years. So just some examples, like we ended up purchasing Nationwide's deposits, which were over $3 billion. So now those are kind of some accounts that we oversee, which in turn has doubled our consumer customer base. We've purchased Clearing, which is now part of Axos Clearing. It's kind of what we've renamed it. And then we also have essentially it's like a robo-advisor or fintech company, which is called Axos Invest. So and that was, again, through an acquisition of another company, but we now have kind of that robo-advisor component to us as well through Axos Invest. So essentially we're constantly looking at ways where we can find like niche markets, whether it's through acquisitions or just kind of diverging into other markets that seem really profitable as an organization. So again, we're not just a traditional bank, but we're like actively looking to take on acquisitions, going into unique and niche markets. And so because of that, we've had that continued growth over the years. And like I mentioned, at one point we were named one of Forbes' fastest growing companies in America. So definitely a great place to be in. Oftentimes with growth comes opportunity, right? So it's a great place to be if you are driven and want to be part of a growing organization. And like I said, we essentially, like, our business model is to try to diversify like our various income streams. So we're not afraid to go into kind of niche markets as well. So that's kind of part of our competitive advantage. And like I said, with our growth, a great example is that we've actually doubled our headcount within the last 4 years. So now we're at over 1,000 employees altogether. So Axos Bank is really a unique place to be. So I always like to emphasize our culture. For many of you out there, if you're kind of thinking about the different companies, obviously you want to take into consideration the role that you'll have, but just as important is the culture of the company and the fit. So that's something that I always like to emphasize. So at Axos, our culture is one of giving people the freedom to identify opportunities, and supported by that data and reason, we like to empower our employees to be able to execute on that. So we are definitely a place where this is something that we expect, and we really mean these things. So we want people to come in who are going to be able to look at the work that they're doing, take ownership of the work that they're doing, and make decisions that are based on essentially supported by data and reason. And so if you have an idea for something and it's supported by that data, then we definitely encourage all of our employees. This even refers to our entry-level talent, which is why I like to emphasize this. Even at the entry level, you have that freedom to be able to assess something, make a recommendation, and actually explore that. We believe in self-governance coupled with personal accountability. So it's definitely a place where you have to be able to take ownership of the work that you're doing. That's built into our culture. So again, even at the entry level, for a lot of these positions, it's someone's first job out of college. So ideally, we're only bringing people on who have that ability to take ownership of what they're doing and accountability. And so as we grow, we do look to promote from within, which gives people a chance to step up into positions where they can see growth. And we value facts, analysis, and ultimately achievement, right? So we are a very results-driven organization. So what that means is it's all about what you can produce. So as I mentioned, with the growth that we are seeing here, that creates tons of opportunities. So this is, again, a great place to start your career because there's many tangible examples of candidates who started their career here and within reasonable amounts of times have been able to advance in their career, typically faster than you would at other companies, just because of our model. Even at the entry level, it's not something where we don't take our entry-level talent seriously. It's actually the opposite. We expect a lot from our entry-level talent. And so if you are a top performer, you're driven, you're curious, you're a producer, then that's how you're able to leverage that in order to get fairly high within the organization within a reasonable amount of time compared to if you were to start in a different type of environment where it's just a bit harder to work your way up. Other organizations sometimes it's a lot about who you know, whereas here it's all about what you produce, what you can produce as an employee. So with that, some of the things that we value in our candidates, which is really important, is emotional involvement and a positive mental attitude. It's been proven that people who are emotionally engaged in the work that they're doing often have better outcomes. So we want people who are going to come on board and be emotionally connected to the role that they have. And also having a good attitude. Axos Bank is a very fast-paced work environment. So we often compare ourselves to working, for example, on the East Coast where things are just really fast-paced. It depends on if you have experience kind of working in that type of environment, but Axos is definitely a fast-paced environment. So you really need to have that personal connection to the work that you're doing and be able to commit to that. We value growth and competence and knowledge. So we want to bring people on who are hungry for knowledge, who want to learn, who want to get the exposure that they would get in a company like this. So we look for people who are going to kind of go that extra mile, who are invested in the work that they're doing, who are curious, who want to learn, and are kind of engaged in this industry itself. We look for people with a strong moral character as well. We are a banking institution, so everything that we do needs to come from a place of strong kind of moral grounding. We have certain regulations that we have to adhere to as an organization. So we want people who are going to have that strong moral character and ethics as well. We believe in superior individual performance within our meritocracy. So really what that means is being able to be a top performer, someone who's driven to perform. That word meritocracy, I'll go into more detail about that in the next slide, but that's definitely something that we look for. We look for people who set themselves high standards and execute on them, but we do reward you for that. So it's definitely something that is unique to our culture in terms of the type of candidates that we're trying to bring on board. And then teamwork, rationality, and then of course, customer obsession. So we wouldn't be who we are without supporting our customers. So we always try to have their needs at the forefront of everything that we're doing. So we definitely operate off of a model of strong efficiency. So as we're looking at how we're doing things and constantly thinking of ways to improve upon the work that we're doing, we always have a focus on how that will serve our customer and clientele base, because essentially that's what we are in business for, to support our customer needs. So regardless of your position, that should always kind of be at the forefront, regardless of your role, looking at how you're supporting kind of that end user. So all of you listening, I always like to kind of pose this out there. If you find yourself as someone who is emotionally invested in the work that you do, you are a self-starter with an eagerness to learn, and you're adaptable to changing environments, and then of course, most importantly, you are results driven, then Axos is really going to be a great place for you to start your career and thrive, because those are all the things that essentially you need to have to be successful in this organization and in the various roles that you would have here. So meritocracy system, this is kind of a unique word that we like to use here at Axos, meritocracy. And really essentially what that's referring to is we are a pay for performance environment. So we like to reward our employees for their individual results. So if you want to be appreciated, respected, and rewarded for accomplishing ambitious goals and meeting the rigorous standards that we have here, that would be done through, for example, our base pay. We do offer a semi-annual bonus, which is kind of like the main feature of our meritocracy system is the bonus. So most of our positions have a semi-annual bonus component to them, which means that twice a year you will be evaluated and potentially be rewarded up to a certain % of your salary based on your performance. So our bonus system is often in the form of cash and stocks, but because it's based on performance, and again, we do have these high standards that we set for all of our employees. If you're ambitious and motivated, and these are things that excite you, then you'll be rewarded through that bonus system. So this is really tied into our culture here. If you're not someone who's motivated by those types of things, it might not be a good environment for you, because again, we do set high standards. We expect a lot for our employees, but the reward comes through our semi-annual bonus that's paid out twice a year. So that's definitely a big part of who we are, and again, how we operate as an organization. And then oftentimes, in addition to that, there is going to be kind of a need for overtime, again, depending. Of course, this varies. This totally depends on like what the actual job is. But again, there is an expectation in general that our employees are committing to whatever time is needed in order to get the job done. So success factors. So what would really make someone be successful in a position like this? So as I mentioned, the ability to take ownership of the work is very important. It's great if you're someone who, typically speaking, we're not an organization that really promotes people like micromanaging and people like following behind what you're doing and kind of having to like give you every step. Instead, what we try to do is bring people on here's your role, here's the different things that you have to get done, that you have to execute on. And then from there, we kind of give you that freedom to get the job done. And so in order to do that, you do need to be resourceful. So it could be situations where not everything is going to be clearly like outlined for you. So again, ideally we're bringing on people who have that ability to seek out unique solutions, who takes the initiative. The next two would be drive and initiative. This is also very important for success in this organization, because again, we expect you to be taking the initiative, especially for the work that you're doing, and then also being a team player and taking the initiative. If you know that you have team members who, you know, where you could support them as well, being able to offer that support, having that career drive is also important, because all these things tie together. If you're not driven as an individual, if you don't take the initiative, if you're not very resourceful, and you don't want to take ownership of the work, then this really isn't going to be the type of organization that someone like that would thrive in. We really want kind of those top performers. We want people who are excited about their careers, who want to advance in their careers, who want to take on more kind of greater responsibility. And those are usually the individuals who really thrive. So again, at the end of the day, it's not all for nothing. We will reward you. So it's definitely a great place, as I mentioned earlier, for that career growth. So you would be part of a growing organization that supports continuous innovation. So again, a really unique feature to us is how we operate. Again, we operate lean. And what that means is we're constantly looking at everything that we're doing and coming up with ways to do it better. So ideally, you have that ability to think innovatively and come up with creative solutions. So it's an exciting place to be if that's what kind of drives you, if you like the idea of stepping into a role, taking ownership of it, constantly thinking of ways that it can be improved upon, it'll be a great fit. You'll have the ability to make an immediate impact because again, we are not an organization that looks down upon like entry level, or we are, you know, we won't take you seriously because this is your first job. It's actually the opposite. We want you to offer your suggestions. We want you to kind of be able to share your thoughts and your feedback. So even for our entry level talent, you're able to see that immediate impact that you have on a job because of your ability to take full ownership of the work that you're doing. We also value superior support performance and create opportunities for growth and increased responsibility because of that. So again, if you are career driven and want to be part of a growing company and kind of contribute to that type of environment, then this is a great place to be, because especially as I mentioned earlier, with us taking on new acquisitions and we're constantly looking to go into niche markets, with those types of things, as well as growing our customer base, that means that we're creating more opportunities for people to step into like leadership positions. So regardless kind of what area within the organization you're working, there's definitely opportunities for growth and increased responsibility if that's something that kind of excites you for your career. So now that you have a little bit more information about who we are as a company, I'm definitely interested in covering some information about, well, what are the opportunities that exist out there for our recent graduates? So this is kind of a general overview, but we're a bank, but obviously we're still an organization. So we have many different areas in the company that potentially you would be able to find an opportunity as an entry-level candidate. So that could be technology, accounting, sales, marketing, kind of more of the business focus, deposit operations, credit, consumer banking, commercial banking, customer service, analytics, auditing. So we have kind of the full gamut of the different areas that you could potentially start your career. So we have ample career opportunities as a whole. And actually 33% of our new hires within the last 4 years, I believe, consisted of entry-level talent. So in a lot of these different areas, a lot of the positions are for candidates who are fairly early in their career. So it's definitely something where there are tangible examples of us kind of seeking out that entry-level talent. And my position, so the role that I took on is actually a new role. So again, speaking to the growth opportunities that exist here, essentially what was happening is, as an organization, we saw that we were bringing on so many entry-level talent, and we want more of that. So my role was created specifically to connect with candidates from our local universities here. So that's like USD, right? So connecting with you students to kind of help facilitate opportunities for you all to get started with your career here, as well as the other local schools that exist. So my role was created specifically because we want to continue to bring on our entry level talent and deploy them across the organization specifically. So some unique opportunities that we have here as well as a company that you probably won't find elsewhere, at least kind of within San Diego. We have entry-level training programs. So these are great opportunities, again, for entry-level talent or those fairly early in their career to join our company and be able to learn and grow. So the program that I specifically oversee is the first one, which is the Junior Credit Analyst program. So this is a unique opportunity within the organization, serving primarily the credit department with built-in rotations. So it is a rotation training program. So what that means is within our credit department specifically, there are many different areas within credit, right? So candidates in this program are actually rotating to these different areas within the organization. So credit, operation, analytics, we've had candidates going into accounting and finance, lender finance, commercial lending. It really just kind of varies, but like I said, it pertains primarily to credit. So if you have an interest in credit and banking, and oftentimes a lot of who we're serving has to do with like real estate transactions. So if you have an interest in like real estate, this particular rotation program is really a great fit. We take all majors essentially, so it just kind of varies. I've seen a lot of like general business majors, finance majors, economics majors, accounting. We don't have a requirement, so you can come really from any degree and do well in this program. But the great thing is that within it, we built in like training and learning opportunities as well. So there is an opportunity to, we'll train you on the organization. So you'll get provided an overview of the company, an overview of credit specifically. You'll learn kind of the ins and outs. You'll meet with all the different managers. We have lunch and learns, so we'll feed you and kind of present on a different topic. There's like reading that's required, so reading material, quizzes, and we're constantly adding new things as well. I would say the coolest thing about this particular program, I oversee it, so I work specifically with the junior credit analysts as well as the managers to help facilitate the rotations. But I also work very closely with the head of credit. So he is a huge advocate of this program. He loves having these junior credit analysts rotating throughout his department. He reports directly up to the CEO. So it's really cool as an entry-level person to have someone who's, I would say, top 5 in the whole organization, being such a huge advocate for this program. Like, he loves to rotate candidates. He wants to get to know you. He wants to actively create opportunities for our junior credit analysts to take on permanent roles. So this position the title is junior credit analyst, but within the course of 1 to 2 years, you would be doing rotations. And then obviously the intent behind that is at the end of that, once you've done your time, you've done your rotations, you've met the other requirements, you would be able to find a permanent role within the company. So the intent behind that was to internally train our employees to be able to take on leadership positions within the company. So again, we want to bring on entry talent. We're excited about, recent graduates who are driven and hungry and want to learn. And this is a perfect example of a program that exists out there where it's actually a benefit to be an entry, to be a recent graduate. We don't require work experience because we want to bring you in, we want to train you on our process, on our procedures, with the intent of you being able to work your way up within the company. And one thing I'll also add in relation to this program specifically, because of how we operate, we are very lean, we are agile, which means that as things change within within the industry, but also within things that are happening in the economy, obviously the current situation with the pandemic is a great example. We have been actively hiring throughout this entire time, and we have not had to lay off any of our employees. And that's really due to the fact that we are able to be really agile during these times. So we run very efficiently. So part of this role as a junior credit analyst, what we hope to achieve at the end of it is to create what we call efficiency experts. So essentially what you're also being trained on very early, which is actually a great skill set to have early in your career, regardless of where you end up long-term, is the ability to look at a process, evaluate it, and produce tangible ways in which that process can be improved. Essentially saving the organization time, saving money, bringing in money to the organization. So it kind of just depends on your process, but it's something that is deeply ingrained in who we are as a company, and also is deeply ingrained in this position as well. So we will train you at the end of your time as a junior credit analyst. We're hoping that you're able to go and whatever permanent role you end up taking, that you've learned how to look at your process, look at the work that you're doing, and constantly be thinking of how that can be improved upon and streamlined and just in general, like made more efficient. The other program that we offer is our Junior Business and Technology Analyst Rotation Program. This is our newest one. So actually this one is just starting. We just brought on the first candidates in this role. This is a technology rotation program. So this specifically exists within our centers of excellence, but it's a technical development program. So within our centers of excellence, there's 4 different rotation tracks. So you could have a CRM track, which is the customer relationship management track, an automation track, a data track, or a developer track. So ideally, for this particular rotation program, we're bringing on candidates that have more technical degrees, analytical degrees, have some experience working with different CRM or database systems, knows a little bit about programming, depending on the track that you're applying for. But this is a great one, like I said, as well. Our credit one is more general. This Junior Business and Technology Analyst Rotation Program is one that's definitely, it has obviously the technology focus in it. But you could do a track where there's rotations within the developer teams, there's rotations within the data teams, automation, or CRM. So each job posting is specific to one of those different tracks that you would be on. Great, and I'll go into more detail about other positions, but those are some of the rotations. We are, again, because we're growing and creating opportunities, there is likely going to be another rotation that that we'll be offering, probably, I'd say maybe starting around fall, potentially in the areas of finance and accounting as well. So that one's kind of in progress right now. We're still kind of working out the details of what that rotation program would be, but it's great because, again, we're constantly adding new opportunities for our entry-level talent. So Outside of that, we do have, here's some kind of general information about like a career path. We do offer internships over the summer. I will say, obviously, for this current summer, it has been put on hold. So we do not currently have summer internship opportunities. But depending on what year you're in, if you still have a few more years left of your undergrad degree, this could be a potential pathway for you. So, for example, if you're in your sophomore or junior year, you ideally would do an internship over the summer. And the great thing is that our internships are really meant to be a pathway for full-time employment. So it's a great way for you to come and gain an insight into the different departments at Axos, see how we are as an organization. You learn about how we operate, you learn about that particular business area. And then at the end of that, ideally, depending on what year you're in, that would roll into a full-time offer, or ideally you're continuing on with school, but then keeping us in mind when you do graduate to come back and actually take on a full-time job. So super exciting, because the intent behind our internship programs would be to hire. Obviously it does vary. So we have internships in all different areas. So some of it is dependent on timing, if there is a need for a full-time employee. But I would say in general, our internship program is not just meant to get kind of additional labor over the summer and just have people come on and support the various teams. There's definitely a more strategic reasoning behind our internship program, and that would be to ideally bring you on in a full-time basis with the organization. So you can come on board, be an intern, get exposed to the organization. We have training and different learning opportunities built into our intern program as well, which is great experience. So it's not just doing the job, but you'll be with a cohort, you'll hear from the managers, you'll learn about the industry. So there's more that would go into it as well. And just an FYI, these are paid internships that we offer. So now to go over a little bit about some of the sample jobs that we actually have for our entry-level talent. So I already mentioned the two rotation programs, which would be the junior credit analyst position, as well as the junior business and technology analyst roles. The ones that are circled here are highlighted in orange are jobs where we have current openings for, or the application is currently open. So currently open for a data QA engineer position, which can be an entry-level talent. We have mortgage loan officer positions, which are that we look for entry-level talent for. That junior business and technology analyst position, I believe it's for the CRM track. We're currently recruiting for, and then the program that I oversee, the junior credit analyst position. But we have many others as well. So we have recruited for like staff accountant, entry-level roles, direct banker roles, junior processors, junior business analysts, loan processors, marketing, accounts payable. So there's a really broad overview, and honestly, this is just like a sample list. There's been other positions as well. We've had, for example, like IT support tech positions, which were entry level. What else? Business continuity analyst roles that we recently recruited for at the entry level. So again, this is a sample list, but as you can see, it's pretty broad in terms of where you could go within the organization or what you could do as an entry-level candidate. One of the things I will mention for those of you interested in the junior credit analyst position, what we typically do is, so I'm just wrapping up with a hiring round for this role. So it depends on what year you are. If there's any seniors who are really interested in this, you can submit your application, but just keep in mind, we are kind of wrapping up with the hiring round. So it just kind of depends on if we still have openings right now. But especially if you're still in school, what we do is we'll oftentimes keep this application open as what we call like a pipeline. So what that means is our junior credit analyst program is quite large and extensive. So we have many candidates. in this. So we actually hire fairly regularly throughout the year for this role. So depending on when, I would say it's best to apply fairly close to when you're going to be graduating, because we wouldn't bring you on if you still have like a full semester or a full year of school. So there's no point in applying if you're not going to be ready to or close to graduating. However, if you are going to be graduating within like 1 or 2 months, you can apply for this. And what we'll do is we'll have you as a pipeline. So what that means is a good example is when I was doing the recruiting for this latest group that I was hiring for, we had candidates who had applied earlier in the year who were planning to graduate around May. So they were submitting their application around February, around March. They weren't ready to start yet, but what I did is I went back and followed up with those candidates that had applied earlier. And then once they did graduate, we were able to have a conversation about the position. So this position might remain open, so just keep in mind you'll be communicated with in regards to your application regardless, but I am wrapping up with a round, so I anticipate maybe the next hiring would be sometime in the fall towards the end of the year. It just kind of depends, but typically what we do is we hire quarterly. That's kind of been the historical. It does obviously depend on the situation. But feel free, if you're close to graduating and this position is open, you can submit your application and we'll keep it on as like a pipeline. And or apply for any of the other ones that you're interested in that have current openings. So what is our recruitment process like? So what happens once you identify a position that you're interested in and you apply for that? What happens is the first step would be to invite you for a phone interview. So the phone interview is meant to gauge your interest and fit for the position. So it's usually a fairly, not a super extensive phone call that you would have with a recruiter about your interests and motivations for applying for that position. And really it's just to assess if it's going to be a good fit in terms of your background, but also you have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the position to see if it's something that you're actually interested in. Once that phone interview happens, if it sounds like it's a good fit for both parties, what will happen is we'll set you up for your first interview. Before that, though, here at Axos, every employee is required to take what's called a Wonderlic assessment. This assessment is essentially to gauge your problem solving and cognitive thinking ability. So it's just kind of like a standardized assessment. You don't necessarily have any specific background to do well, but we'll have you do the first part of the assessment after your phone interview. And then when you come in for your in-person interview, we'll have you complete the rest of that assessment in person, and then you'll meet with whoever you need to meet with for the interview. So once you come in for the interview, essentially we're learning more about your background, what specific skill sets you have that pertain to the position. We'll give you more information, and ultimately we'll try to see if it's a culture fit. So one of the things that we do here at Axos is we actually hire for kind of based on your background and skill sets just as much as we do for culture fit. So that culture fit is really an important piece. So even if you have an exact match in terms of the skill sets, if we feel you're not going to fit in with the type of organization we are and the culture that we have here and the expectations that we have for our employees, it's not really something that's going to make sense for either party. So we definitely look to hire based on your background, but also for the fit. And then second round interviews, that's usually at the manager's discretion. Not every position requires a second interview, so that just kind of depends. I would say, at least for the position that I oversee, which is a junior credit analyst role, usually it's just the one in-person interview, and then we'll be able to make a decision. And so one of the things that I always like to emphasize also in relation to this is we feel that high performers are wired a bit differently. They thrive off of challenges as well as working in a fast-paced environment and actually want to be held accountable to ambitious goals. So we believe that our team members embody this, and that they're really unique. And they, like, our team members are the core of our success. So essentially, we are looking to bring on more of those high performers who feel that they can thrive in a fast-paced environment and want to be accountable, but also rewarded for achieving ambitious goals. So again, if this excites you, if this is something that motivates you, if you are someone who is starting out in your career, wants to learn, wants to kind of get that exposure, this is a great place to be. And so, like I mentioned, those jobs were just kind of like sample jobs. There's many other openings, so feel free to search our current openings and apply directly at axosbank.com /careers. That's where you'll be able to apply for our positions. You can actually search for the job title or search by business unit as well. So if you want to work in technology or credit or whatever the area, you can search by the business area and submit your application for any of the positions that I had highlighted, and then any of the other ones that are also open that you feel you would be a good fit for. Perfect. And so that's really everything that I wanted to cover. So I did want to leave some time for questions as well, but here's my contact information. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's my direct email as well. So I support that rotation program, which is primarily within credit, but I work in HR. So I also work alongside all the recruiters, and I am a recruiter in terms of connecting with undergrads or entry-level talent as well. So cool. So Kelsey, if you want to go through and check the checkbox or the chat box for questions, otherwise we can open it up for candidates to just ask their questions as well.
Definitely, yes. We got 3 questions in the chat while you were presenting. So the first one is, would positions in IT and cybersecurity be eligible for semi-annual bonuses?
So essentially all positions that are not commission-based are eligible for a semi-annual bonus. So unless you're commission-based, which is usually has more of like a sales focus, you would be eligible. The position would include the semi-annual bonus. So typically any of our like analyst positions, like my position even in HR, most are, unless it's like a more sales driven position, which is based on commission only.
Thank you. The next one was, have any junior credit analysts been able to secure a job as real estate appraisers or in any real estate related positions?
Yeah, I would say in the really cool thing about our junior credit analyst position, so actually many of the managers that have junior credit analysts and now are running their own departments, they themselves actually started out as a junior credit analyst. Many of the managers that I talk to, like through random conversation, they'll be like, oh yeah, I was actually a junior. Examples of people doing this program and then securing like permanent placement and then being able to work their way up. Within credit itself, so credit often pertains to working with like the different like deals and loans that come through. So a lot of the loans that credit is kind of overseeing, doing the underwriting for, et cetera, pertain to real estate, like real estate transactions. So it could be like commercial or industrial, it could be single family residential. But generally speaking, within credit itself, there's a lot of focus on real estate. There is an appraisal. So that group specifically usually takes on kind of our top performers and those obviously that have an interest specifically in that area. But appraisals is an option within the rotation program itself. And then, like I said, I don't know everyone's background and where everyone has been deployed within the organization, but typically the way it works is depending on what we'll try to do is we will try to align one of your last rotations to be in the area that you ideally are hoping to stay on in a permanent role. So that's typically been how we try to time it. So if you have that specific focus and it's a good fit, obviously, for the manager and for you, then that could potentially be a direction that you go. I will say the rotations with this program, one thing I want to emphasize is it's not a situation where you would come and day one, you would be presented, here's a list of, you know, here's where you're going to be rotating to, here's the exact date that you're rotating to. It's definitely much more of like a fluid thing that happens. So business need plays a large factor. So within the rotation program, where is there a need? So what group needs some additional support? If we get a big influx of loans, we need to account for like underwriters. So it could be you're deployed to the underwriting team, or it could be based on conversation. So it could be a factor of your background, you're doing well, your interests, you have an interest, for example, in appraisals. Okay, let's have that conversation to see if we can move you to that. So it's definitely a much more fluid thing that happens in terms of the rotations.
Great, thank you. The last one that was submitted during your presentation was, do you consider foreigners who need a visa sponsored for these positions?
Great question. So unfortunately, Axos is not able to sponsor international candidates. So it is not a situation where we would typically take on an international candidate, regardless of if they have OPT or what their status is. So that's kind of our current situation. So if you're an international student at some point requiring sponsorship, that is not typically something that the organization is able to do at this point.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's a lot of international students. So I work closely with all the different schools here. So that's always something that I like to be upfront about, because obviously, you know, we don't want to waste anyone's time if it's not something that we would be willing to do. And it's not super clear on the job descriptions. Usually it doesn't specify.
Well, I'd like to welcome questions from students. If you want to type them in the chat or you want to unmute yourself, I will say this is being recorded. So if you don't want your face being shown, please turn your camera off. But otherwise, unmute yourself. Feel free to ask questions while we have the recruiter with us. And you can also type them in the chat.
Any questions? No?
Give it a few more minutes to see if anyone chats anything. Okay. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, so I will follow up with all of the students with a follow-up email, including Meritocracy's email address. So if you'd like to connect with her after this presentation, she'd be happy to do so. I'll also include any jobs that are posted on Handshake from Axos, as well as the Axos career website, so you can look for further positions too. But if you have any questions for me, I'll put my email in the chat box as well. But I wanted to say thank you to Meritocracy for your time and presenting to our students. We really value your advice and information on Axos. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you all. And hopefully I'll see some applications come in, or we can kind of have some conversations. If you're, depending on if you're still in school and have a few more years before you're going to be ready. But like I said, Axos is a great place to consider, just because we do typically bring on a lot of entry-level talent and have some really unique training programs depending on kind of the area that you want to focus in on. So cool, definitely keep us in mind and feel free to reach out if there are any other questions.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and have a great rest of your Friday. It's Friday.
Yeah.
Yay.